Hello, this is LimeGuy64 of Made the Tech Productions, and last week I received a massive vintage computer haul from my school, and one of the computers I got is this TriGem DreamSys 2000 PC. While at first glance it looks like your typical OEM beige box computer from the mid-90s, if you look closely however, this thing has, that's right, a Pentium Pro processor. If you don't know what a Pentium Pro processor is, during the mid 90s, Intel launched the Pentium Pro line as basically the top end microprocessor you could buy from them, beating pretty much all the Pentium processors available at the time. But that's only on the 32-bit performance. 16-bit performance on the Pentium Pro wasn't much of a significant improvement. So users of Pentium Pro systems and enthusiasts would use Windows NT 4.0 because NT 4 is a pure 32-bit operating system. Windows 95 is a 16-32-bit hybrid, therefore the 16-bit part of Windows 95 would somewhat bottleneck it. But anyway, the Pentium Pros would only connect to a socket 8 motherboard, socket 8 being the only socket type that was designed specifically for the Pentium Pro, and eventually the original Pentium 2 overdrive processors, sporting 387 pins. Well, Pentium Pros are distinct by their size because being larger than the socket 7 processors and even larger than current processors because both the CPU and L2 cache dies are on the same processor package, hence the size. And also Pentium Pros can be configured in single, dual, or quad processor architecture configurations, so long as the motherboard supports it. As in, you literally need a motherboard with 2 or 4 processor sockets to have a dual or quad Pentium Pro system. But anyway, enough of that rambling. If you want to learn more about the Pentium Pro, look it up on Wikipedia or somewhere. But anyway, let's head and look around closer to this system. Well, I received this computer mostly bare, lacking the disk drives in the second drive bay cover. So I had to pull this one out from a unit identical to this, but without the Pentium Pro. So I don't know what the original configuration of this computer was when it arrived in the school. So there's the product label and tech support number, which actually reminds me of the tech support hotline sticker you'd see in the backs of a Nintendo Entertainment System or Super Nintendo, because the character or something in the sticker. And the system also lacked a graphics card, so I had to stick my own here, which is actually incidentally very much suited for the Pentium Pro system. It was also lacking a power supply, so I stuck one in here. And the sound card that was in here was an OPTI 82C929, which is actually an unusual clone card to me, because that card actually had an actual Yamaha OPL3 chip, which is unusual because usually clone cards don't have a genuine OPL3 and would rather just use a not as authentic or accurate sounding chip instead. So to open up this computer, you just turn these knobs to the side. The only way to lock the case from being open is to have a key that will go here and lock the cover, but unfortunately I cannot find the key anymore. But good thing that this was already unlocked, otherwise this thing would have been opened to begin with. You lift the cover up, and there reveals the innards of this computer. The computer was also missing any disk drives as well, so yeah. So I think I have to cut for a bit so I can put this thing on its side to show you the innards much better. So here's the computer on its side now, which makes it easier for me to show you the innards. So yeah, it's pretty much standard. This is a single Pentium Pro motherboard, a standard Intel OEM board that was also used in compact Pentium Pro systems and possibly a couple others. I don't know the brand at the moment, but anyway. The motherboard has equal numbers of PCI and ISA slots, 4 for both, but not very populated much because it's all I need to get this computer the way I want it to be. I didn't have an SCSI controller. I don't know what the original configuration of this system is, so I'm not sure if this system originally had an SCSI hard disk, but I doubt it. Anyway, so the video card I put in here, this thing didn't have a graphics adapter, is a Matrox MGA Millennium, which had excellent window acceleration performance and can push 1600 by 1200 resolution at 16-bit color, which is freaking insane for a video card from the mid-90s. This thing has 4 megabytes of video RAM. I think you could then expand it up to 8 megabytes if you have the memory expansion daughter card that will go here. But 4 megabytes is good enough for me. I'm not doing like high resolution graphics stuff on this whatsoever. I do it on a modern PC, especially when I cannot plug my tablet onto this thing. Well, I could, because this thing has USB ports, but well, it doesn't have NT drivers for the tablet. So as for the sound card, it came with that OPTI card I mentioned, but I replaced it with a Sound Blaster 16 card because it's proven that I can find an NT driver for it. Yeah, I've installed Windows NT into this system. So this one is your typical Sound Blaster 16 from the mid-90s. It has the not as authentic sounding, but still better than a clone card, Creative CT 1978 synthesizer chip, which was present in the late Sound Blaster 16 cards. Over here is the edu SIM memory banks. This computer fortunately had its original memory still installed, but I upgraded it. This computer shipped with 32 megabytes of edu memory, but no, not 32, I think it was, yeah, it was 64 megabytes, but I've expanded it up to 96 megabytes because why not, and the workstation PC must have as much memory as possible. I could put one to 8 megabytes, but I don't have a pair of 32 megabyte edu SIMs that are not faulty. And that massive heatsink over there is the Pentium Pro processor itself, clocked at 180 megahertz with 256 kilobytes of L2 cache memory. I could try to clock it up to 200 megahertz using jumper settings over here, but I don't think this Pentium Pro would like to be run at 200 megahertz, so yeah. And down over here is the power regulators and little transformer coils that power the Pentium Pro. On some motherboards, the power regulator, typically the high-end motherboards, the power regulator would actually be separate, as a separate module. I imagine the reason for that is so that if one of the regulators fail for whatever reason, you can replace them without having to replace the whole motherboard, saving cost and time servicing a Pentium Pro workstation in the mid-90s. So yeah, there's your typical IDE and floppy interfaces. I've stuck in a Sony CD rewritable drive because that's what I have at the moment to stuff into the system, and a Quantum Bigfoot 2.1 gigabyte hard drive. I wanted to go with the 6 gigabyte TriGem hard disk, but because of the way how Windows NT installs the operating system, I cannot install it on a partition larger than 4 gigabytes, so I had to use a smaller hard disk instead. I'm thinking of cloning this hard disk to a bigger drive and expand the file system at a later time though. So yeah. Floppy drive is still original. The power supply is your typical cheapy ATX, which I have lying around at the moment. I might try to find a better power supply for this because this might blow up, but I doubt it. But that's all I have at the moment, so rather just stick with it for now. But yeah, also I should mention that TriGem at some point is TriGem is actually Samsung. For some reason they named their, or maybe TriGem and Samsung were separate and they merged together at some point. I'm not sure, because I had TriGem hard drives that were actually Samsung hard disks. So yeah, choosing a Matrox MGA Millennium was a perfect choice for this Pentium Pro system, because the MGA Millennium has supports as a feature that's only available on a Pentium Pro systems, as well and Pentium 2 as well, and that is write combining, which is said to improve 2D graphical performance considerably on a Pentium Pro system. I got this card from a haphazardly put together Pentium 3 slot 1 system. The pins are a bit bent, but it's okay nonetheless. And also there's this however the computer came with a Suricom EP320 XR 10100 Ethernet adapter, which is good. Finding drivers for it is a piece of cake, and there's drivers for pretty much every operating system available: DOS, Windows 3.1, Windows 3, NT 3.51, OS2, etc. So many drivers, but I don't think this one has Windows 7 x64 drivers because it's a discontinued chip. But anyway, what I find unusual about this computer, I forgot to mention this earlier, is that the heatsink for the Pentium Pro is a passive heatsink. It's not an active heatsink for some reason. And since this is a Pentium Pro, the Pentium Pro gets extremely hot. But it seems to run happy, even despite the temperatures exceeding the maximum limits of modern processors today. I'm not sure if there's supposed to be some kind of a duct that will go to the power supply to blow the hot air out, but I'm not sure. But for the meantime, let's just run the processor in passive at the moment. Processor seems to work fine with it anyway. But anyway, that's pretty much the insides of this computer. And let's close this up again, wire it up, and fire it up. Okay, I've now hooked up my Pentium Pro workstation to my main work desk. I'm using a Samsung ThinkMaster 214TS because it's the only monitor I have that has a native 1600 by 1200 resolution that isn't faulty. Yeah, I've upgraded to an LCD monitor because my old Mitsubishi 21-incher is sadly dying. Picture going blank from time to time, and I have to wham the display as hard as possible to get the picture back. But anyway, also I forgot to mention that these Pentium Pros, being that they were targeted mostly to the professional market and were very expensive, like we're talking thousands of dollars expensive, these processors are quite rare, and in this day and age they're getting even rarer, especially with these scumbag scrappers who are getting as many of these Pentium Pro processors as possible for their gold. So if you want to get a hold of a Pentium Pro system, expect to pay a lot, and expect to pay to deal with smashed up processors by scalpers. But anyway, no, not scalpers, scrappers. But anyway, let's fire this up. That nostalgic Bigfoot startup. Spin up. So I'm gonna close up the windows so sun glare will be reduced a bit. Reposition camera and zoom. There it has boot. Okay. Unlike most computers I should have showed the BIOS before, but the BIOS on this thing is somewhat different than what you usually have. It's an AMI BIOS, but it's a different one. I think this BIOS is designed specifically for workstation grade systems, including this Pentium Pro PC. We get 96 megabytes of memory. So your Quantum Bigfoot there, your writable drive. And you got the processor type is a Pentium Pro, clocked at 180 MHz with 256K of cache. And then let's just quit and load up Windows NT 4.0 Workstation. Yeah, the Windows NT has no startup screen except this non-fatal blue screen, which shows you the exact NT version, Windows NT version, also build number, service pack number. It also displays your number of processors and memory, which we have 96 megabytes of. I was able to find drivers for all the peripherals I installed except the USB on the motherboard at the moment. Well, USB in Windows NT is not very useful because I don't think there are any drivers to get things like USB flash drives working. Windows NT 4.0 with Microsoft Internet Explorer. Of course, this thing cannot browse the modern internet, because modern websites don't like are not very friendly with old browsers. So let's log in, and I'll just enter blank in the password because it didn't specify. Not sure if you hear the nostalgic drive sound of the Quantum Victor. So as you can see, the system's running at 1600 by 1200 resolution, albeit at 16-bit color depth. Let's see there. I could go up to 24-bit if I had the memory expansion board for the card, but I don't have. And besides, I don't really need the 1600 by 1200 resolution because I'm doing graphic stuff on this. The Matrox MGA has excellent window acceleration, but the MGA Millennium also had some degree of 3D hardware acceleration, but it's absolutely potato. It doesn't work with OpenGL, and I think there was only like one game that supported the hardware accelerating capabilities of the MGA Millennium. So, and maybe a couple of CAD applications, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, this is Windows. As you can see, Windows NT has a Windows 95 style shell, and it's very smooth. Actually, yeah, look at that window drag. It's very smooth. I'm pretty sure Windows 95 and even 98 systems can't do that, unless you have an MGA Millennium. But let's go to my Raspberry Pi based file server first, just to take a look at some goodies. We're gonna demonstrate the window acceleration stuff, capabilities of the MGA Millennium by viewing a bunch of high resolution images in MS Paint and then dragging it around. Yay, Freedom Planet Furry! But anyway, as you can see, it's very freaking fast. Well, yeah, it looks very trivial nowadays, but for a system in the made in the mid 90s, this is some excellent window acceleration, if you ask me. I've worked with Windows 98 computers, and the window dragging is not like this at all. Usually, when you drag, it will be somewhat of a border first, and then when you let go, it will redraw the window, and it's not as fast and smooth as this at all. Well, unless you have the later Pentium 3 systems. Let's try another image that I've copied here. There's one that's 152 by 864 resolution. Artwork of this is by Blargan69 on DeviantArt. Yeah, as you can see, window acceleration is very smooth. But, which is great if you're working with many windows. If you're using a Pentium Pro system as your main work PC. No, not that. Let's not get into that. Tired of it from the last video. And here's an artwork by Lumdrop on DeviantArt, 152 by 864 resolution. Some of the last one because I use these as wallpapers basically for my other systems. And most of my CRT monitors have a maximum resolution of 1152 by 864 at a refresh rate higher than 60 Hz. So yeah, that's quite impressive window acceleration. So since I don't intend on using a Pentium Pro workstation as my main workstation. I'm mostly gonna use this primarily for gaming stuff. Gaming is always the first thing to do with high-end computers like this. Now let's check the display properties of the Matrox card out of curiosity. And it can actually handle higher refresh rates at 1600 by 1200. I can only go 24-bit at 1280 by 1024 because of the video memory. Interesting options about the Matrox display is that you can have a scrollable window where if your monitor cannot handle 1600 by 1200, you can just go for something like have a display resolution of 800 by 600, but the desktop area will be something like 1280 by 1024, and then you could like like 1600 by 1200, so you could like scroll around using the mouse. It's strange, but if the monitor you had cannot reach maximum resolution to begin with, it's not too bad of an option. So it's still a bit confusing though. And there's this one too. I don't know, but yeah, you can have like this kind of wow, I can go up to 1/800 by 1440. Right now it's only desktop area, but as for display I can only go up to 1600 by 1200. So yeah, basically you'd have a desktop of whatever high resolution you have here, and then your actual display will be 1024 by 768, and you just scroll around it. You also got mostly vertical, basically like a virtual twin display setup, or dual display. You can also go for vertical if you want, and there's an option for dual display. I cannot do dual display with this even though it had two VGA connectors, because the second VGA connector requires a special adapter for either connecting to a Mac monitor or another VGA monitor. So yeah, it claims to have 3D capabilities, but the 3D capabilities is potatoes, like I said before. Only a few software packages support it. It's OpenGL, but it says claims to be OpenGL. When I tried to run Quake GL Quake, it doesn't. It uses the generic GDI renderer rather than hardware accelerated renderer. So yeah, here's the right combining option for Pentium Pro and Pentium 2 systems. So let's go do some gaming. So here, let's go and give Doom 95 a shot. Oops, sorry. Let's make sure it's running at 640 by 480 resolution. And go for hurting plenty because I'm not an easy goer. And there's Doom running on a Pentium Pro system. There's sound effects, but no music. There's supposed to be music. Where's the kick butt music? Well, that's because there's for some reason a bug with the sound driver where when Doom 95 tries to adjust the MIDI volume, it will go into some kind of absurdly high volume that it causes the MIDI synthesizer or the CT1978 synthesizer to go mute. So my fix is to bring up the mixer and then adjust the MIDI volume there, then go back. There we go. Now let's play some Doom. Runs quite well though, much better than my Cyrix systems, than my non-Pentium 3 system. Mind you, this is running at 640 by 480 resolution. For some reason in Doom, when you run Doom 95 in Windows NT, there's no mouse support, which is quite disappointing because I really like the mouse control of Doom. More precise than the traditional keyboard control. Actually, the CQM synthesizer is not too bad for a clone of the OPL3. Definitely better than some clones I've dealt with. We'll just finish this level and then move on. For the Pentium Pro to perform at its best, you must run Windows NT on it. And you're limited to basically 32-bit Windows applications and games for best performance. So Pentium Pro is not exactly a viable option for DOS gaming in my opinion, because Pentium Pro only performs best when you're running 32-bit programs on the thing. There we go. This game's running at about somewhere around 30 to 25 frames per second, which is playable, considering that you're running this at twice the resolution as playing the original DOS version in VG resolution. Almost perfect. So yeah, that's Doom running on a Pentium Pro system. And let's quit and move on to somewhere else. As far as games, support for games in Windows NT, most games in the early Windows 95, early Windows 98, and Windows 95 and early Windows 98 era are compatible, because Windows NT 4.0 only has like DirectX 3 or DirectX 4. So if you're trying to run games that use anything greater than that, then it will be a disappointment. Interestingly, and there's no way to update the DirectX. There's no way to update DirectX in Windows NT, unfortunately. So yeah, you're limited in what kind of Windows games you can play on a Pentium Pro system running NT. I don't recommend running Windows 2000 on Pentium Pro. That would be very awful. Also, interesting thing about NT is that the task manager looks awfully identical to that in Windows 2000, XP, and even Windows 7. Well, that's because Windows NT, because Windows 2000 and onwards were all descendants of Windows NT 4.0. So, and also Windows, of course, Windows 7 and pretty much every version of Windows after Windows 2000, excluding Millennium, is basically a descendant of Windows NT. But interestingly, despite the compatibility issues I mentioned, Jackrabbit 2 runs on Windows NT 4, and it runs very fast too, faster than my Cyrix Windows computers. Also, interesting thing about this Orange Games logo sequence is that this thing is actually real time. And if your processor has MMX capabilities, you'll actually apply anti-aliasing. But since we're on a Pentium Pro with no anti-aliasing, there's... no MMX I meant. There's no anti-aliasing. So, configuration of Jackrabbit 2 I've set is... interestingly, only have 8-bit modes on the Mapbox NGA card. Hardware mode on, texture 3D background on, no MMX capabilities because we're on Pentium Pro without MMX. Yeah, that was the biggest drawback of the Pentium Pro, despite being in production all the way up to 1998. None of them had MMX capabilities. I'm not sure about the Pentium 2 Overdrive though. So, turned off in ambient lighting because it's stupid, I think. All it does is just dim the screen and slow everything down. You don't really need ambient lighting in 2D games. You only need that in 3D. And let's just skip the secret files and let's go with jazz because jazz. Yep. Actually, this game runs much better than on my Cyrix systems, especially with even with the Matrox MGA card. It's also faster than the Pentium 200 MHz processors I have. I'm also gonna touch on Quake after this, which doesn't seem, I don't know, it still runs quite well. I wonder if the hardware acceleration in this game actually works. Because I remember it not doing much performance-wise, but I think that was because I was using a cheap mid-range S3 card, which doesn't have true hardware true or good hardware acceleration. Oh, I haven't discovered that secret before. There's only a carrot there. Let's just finish the level and just finish this level and move on to Quake. Running at 640. Pretty sure at this time the Pentium Pro is running at a cooking hot temperature. It can actually burn you if you touch it. Or if you touch it long enough, that is. It's a shame that there's no third sequel to this game. I really like the Jackrabbit series. And I think from what I've heard, this game still hasn't been re-released officially in places like GOG that I know of at the moment. Okay, so that's Jackrabbit 2 running on a Pentium Pro system with a Matrox MGA Millennium. So let's go ahead and move on to Quake. There's also Internet Explorer 4.0. So yeah, when I tried to run GL Quake, it just uses the Windows GDI software renderer rather than the hardware renderer. That's why I call the hardware acceleration capabilities of the MGA Millennium potato, except, well, the window acceleration, which was actually pretty damn good. So let's try Quake. It runs quite okay. Probably better than, I don't know how to do the time demo benchmarks. Maybe I'll just do the benchmark stuff later. You can see it runs quite well on a 640 by 480 resolution. Is it 640 by 480? No, this is 320 by 240. Let's try 640 by 480. So, yeah, actually it was a bit sharp. But to some degree it's a bit playable. Floating point performance was supposed to be faster than the engine available at the time. But yeah, it's just play a game of Quake. Hopefully mouse support works fine. You just need to type in envelope. Oh my gosh, actually it's pretty choppy if you're in complex geometry. Let's just do a round of Quake. At 640 by 480. Not sure if the reason, not really, but I haven't seen Quake running on a Pentium 2 before, so I'm not sure if there's a margin if a Pentium 2 was faster than the Pro. Well, Quake was known for being difficult to run at full speed when it was first launched, even with high-end hardware at the time. It was also the first game that required a floating point unit as a mandatory hardware option to get the game running. Forget the command that turns on the crosshair. Some derpy jumping. I could have run Quake 2 on this, but I haven't copied it yet to the system yet. But yeah, that's Quake 2 running on a Pentium Pro. What else shall we do with a Pentium Pro system? Hey, why not we try browsing the internet? Let's see what websites can we... I find it strange that Google that will load fine on IE4, but it won't load on IE6 anymore. And it's also annoying. So what should we search? Why not we search Pentium Pro? Yep, yep, I can still browse the net on IE4. Let's try DeviantArt. Try plugin 69. Oh, nope, it doesn't work. Let's try my favorite furry website. Nope. Comfort doesn't want us to connect because we're using IE4. It doesn't like direct IP access. Oh well. And there you have it. That's my very own Pentium Pro Workstation PC in action, pretty much. I don't have much of a use with this computer, gaming-wise, because I have other better vintage options that outperform the Pentium Pro considerably. And no, this is not just generic, some random newish computer from the 2000s. I mean, games like Quake would run better on a Pentium 3 slot 1 system. And yeah. As you can see here, actually this 3D Maze screensaver is probably the only part where the hardware acceleration part of the Matrox MGA card actually works, because it runs faster than usual. If I set the desktop to 640 by 480, so it doesn't have to stretch the frame buffer to fill the entire 1600 by 1200 mode. But yeah, this is probably the only instance where the 3D capabilities actually work on the MGA Millennium. But anyway, so like I said, I don't have much of a use with this computer in the long run, so it's more or less just a collector thing. And also this computer will just be in my house temporarily. It's just here for repairing, for restoration, and for me to play around with it for a bit. Because the owner of this school, the school where I got this computer from, who also happens to be my uncle, which explains why it was so easy for me to get these computers from the school, is that he's planning to set up a room that will be full of nothing but vintage computers that I have restored for display and for demonstrations, which students can turn on and play around with if they like. Play games like Doom or Quake. Stuff of the era, pretty much, to show how much, how far PCs have evolved over the years. If such an exhibit is established sometime in the future, it'll probably make the school the only school in the Philippines to have pretty much a museum of vintage computers that have fully functioning examples that visitors are free to play around with. But right now we don't. There's no room for such an exhibit at the moment, so these computers will stay around in my house for a bit, for me to play around and fix up, pretty much. But I don't know of any school that has a similar exhibit. I doubt there is, that I know of. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Like, comment, share, and subscribe if you want. And if you have any, especially if you have tips on what to do with Pentium Pro systems other than, well, scrapping them, because that would be a douchebag move, put that in the comments as well. And as always, LameGuy64 is signing out, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.